Thanks very much, Matthew. Welcome, everybody. Thanks for attending today. I'm just waiting for the presentation. Great. What a title. Quite a lot to live up to. I hope I do it justice. As Matthew said, both Ian Douglas, who's the director of our Doctoral Academy, and myself put this presentation together. Although, unfortunately, Ian, as part of his directorship duties, has been called away to Leeds today. So I'm on my own. Hope I can answer many of your questions. I aim to speak for about 20-25 minutes, and then hopefully we can have a discussion after that. I will be asking a few questions as we go along. I think you can respond by the top menu bar. There's a little drop down. It's got a little figure with a hand in the air. You can give some indication of your response to my questions, and Matthew will be able to gauge those, and we can talk about those a bit later. Right, onward. This is myself and Ian. I'm sure you really wanted to see that. Quick overview of what we're going to be talking about. Just to put things in context, I'll talk briefly about the changing face of the UK doctorate, and then more particularly in the University of Sheffield's Doctoral Development Programme, and how we support this, the DDP, as we call it, with PebblePad. I'll talk briefly about the reception and challenges we've had along the way, and then move on to future developments, where I'll talk briefly about our plans to use Flourish to actually refine our supervisory and admin processes. Employability is now key. It's interesting that nationally, of 47% of PGRs who initially undertake a career in science, and that's the broad category of science, 30% actually remain in the higher education sector for early career positions, but only 3.5% actually obtain tenure, and only 0.45% eventually become professors. I think that's quite shocking. Today's doctoral researchers need to be prepared for what's known as the knowledge economy. And this is known as the demand to hire people with the ability to work in multidisciplinary and professional teams and to co-produce knowledge with people drawn from a range of interested stakeholders outstrips the demand to hire people who are only able to work within strict disciplinary boundaries, producing knowledge individually within a single academic discipline. We're all about cross-discipline collaborations and skills that are transferable. UK employers are actually adding their input into these necessary personal qualities for our doctoral graduates. The RC UK use PGRs not only as crucial to the UK's international research standing, but also considers their higher level transferable skills to be vitally important if the UK is to develop a balanced, sustained, high-growth, high-wage economy. And the European Union places a similar emphasis on high-level skills and transferable knowledge for building the growth of the innovation union, as they call it. Employers themselves, both corporate and government, are actually adding input into this necessity to have doctoral graduates who have transferable skills, but not only that, but the ability to communicate their skills, their technical skills, but also communicate in lay terms to other organisations. So to address this in Sheffield, as with most universities around the UK and actually worldwide now, we've instigated a doctoral development programme, and this has been running in one shape or form for the last 7 or 8 years. And it's not just about the PhD anymore. It's not just about the project. We hope that our doctoral development programme encourages personal and professional development, and we try and identify strengths and weaknesses in the individual skill set through use of a training needs analysis, a TNA, and we hope we provide support and training for both generic and research skills, and it's tailored to the individual needs. And this opens up to the wider utility, this employability factor. So how do we actually use PebblePad to support the DDP? I say it's not just about replacing paper. I think, like many universities in the UK, Sheffield doesn't have a single dedicated system for both supervising and administering PhD students. That's their records, that's their training needs, that's giving the students themselves access to their records and training. The admin is very resource intensive, and it's difficult for all parties to monitor progress. The supervisors themselves, the administrative teams, and indeed the students sometimes don't know where they quite are on this process of obtaining a PhD. PebblePad, we've decided, can actually satisfy some of our requirements to help in our both supervisory needs, our administrative needs, and of course giving the students the ability to see all of their records and their progress in one location. It encourages reflective practice at every point, which is fantastic. And it's a tool, a really useful tool for evidencing their skills and experiences while they're on the DDP. And of course, ultimately, they will produce an e-portfolio, which, again, because PebblePad, it's portable. If they pursue a career in another higher education institute, they can take their PebblePad with them. Even if they leave higher education, go into a corporate environment, they can have a personal PebblePad account. So investment in recording their skills and experiences in PebblePad isn't wasted. They can take this information with them and use it as their career develops. So I said, we produce a training needs analysis, and in PebblePad, this is a simple workbook that actually lists both subject specific and generic skills. I'm afraid that image is a little small on the page there, but as you can see, we have a number of attributes that we actually ask the student to assess themselves, both initially when they join us in Sheffield and over their PhD programme over the 3 years. And because it's a workbook, they're able to evidence their initial grading of their particular attribute, and also as they progress and develop, attend training courses or gain experience in any of these attributes, they can evidence that. And their supervisors can comment on this and give feedback appropriately. One of the powerful things, of course, with workbooks and workbooks that are submitted via Atlas is the ability to report. Reporting in Atlas is used to identify both the individual's training needs as well as those of the peer group. For instance, we can't really call them a cohort because PhDs tend to start cross-sessionally. But for instance, if the admin team and supervisory team actually look at the reports for the training need analysis for an intake year and see that a particular group of students have graded themselves very low on, say, their knowledge of simple statistic applications, that gives us an opportunity to direct DDP modules and extra training to that intake, as well as just to the individual. Part of the training needs analysis, we ask the students to provide a yearly summative action plan, which actually is known as a personal development plan. And this is required of the QAA, which is the Quality Assurance Agency for Higher Education. And it's a process that, as they say, helps you to think about your own learning, performance and or achievements and to plan for your personal, educational and career development. We ask for a yearly summative personal development plan, which is actually produced in the TNA. But of course, the students have the opportunity to create action plans for every attribute that's included in the TNA. We need to ensure that supervisory meetings actually take place. Now, of course, normally this is not a problem. Hopefully the student sees their supervisor on a daily basis. But we need to be able to audit this in case there are breakdowns in the student-supervisor relationship. We need to be able to identify issues at an early stage. Also, of course, we need to be able to satisfy Home Office regulations for Tier 4 visa requirements. And we use our supervisory meeting reports, which again are delivered via PebblePad to actually satisfy some of these needs. Just as an aside, the picture here is actually of the supervisory meeting report form that we use, and you'll see in red here, it says, student, you must complete every section of the form before submitting. Now, I don't know if any of you use forms in this way to literally just gather information from individuals, but in Classic, we had this lovely ability to make fields mandatory in templates. And we think this would be fantastic to have again, because the problem we do have is that no matter how much we ask our students to fill in every section of the form, okay, they often don't, which causes a lot of problems for our admin team in chasing up forms and information. This form actually is completed not only by the student, but it has assessor fields that are completed by the supervisor. So both the student and supervisor can contribute to the same form, and that is submitted to a workspace that is then looked at by the admin team and, of course, the lead supervisory tutors. And again, we're able to draw off reports very simply, either visually, directly through PebblePad, or export the entire data set out as a spreadsheet, and it enables us to say, look at each field, look at both the student response and the supervisor response. We can compare differences. So if a student rates their particular progress for 1 month as good, but their supervisor doesn't rate it so highly, we can just keep a tab on these possible issues that may develop. Obviously, if this is just a blip, one particular month, and we do ask the student and supervisor to return 9 forms a year. These are our official auditable points of contact. Obviously, sometimes there may be a blip for one particular month and there's nothing to worry about. But obviously, if we see a trend over 9 months that there is this disagreement between the supervisor and student, then it allows the PGR leads to take more of an active role in identifying any issues that might be happening. Of course, ultimately, we demand of the student an e-portfolio. Submission of a portfolio is actually a requirement of the PhD award in Sheffield. And this is actually initially why we got PebblePad into the university. It was to satisfy this need for just a simple webfolio system. Of course, we found subsequently that PebblePad is useful for all sorts of other things, and it's used across the institution now in learning and teaching and development activities. We ask the students in their webfolio to include all their DDP activities, and it's a very simple anonymised example here, and you can see that some of the students actually go to town and customise it and make them the the portfolios look really, really good. And in the portfolio, these are our recommended requirements, or our requirements actually. We need the TNA and development plans, evidence of research skills, techniques and equipment usage, all the training courses that they attend as part of the DDP modules. This could be health and safety training or research ethics training, evidence of their literature review, lists of seminars and conferences attended or presented, and any outreach activities or extracurricular activities of note. I said it's not just about replacing the paper, but actually a lot of it is just about replacing paper forms. This is actually the DDP development plan that the Pebble template has replaced. And you can see it's a single side of A4, okay, not much scope for a lot of content or involved content, and room for signatures at the bottom. And we're trying to replace a lot of our paper with a Pebble template equivalent. Purely, in a lot of cases, this is to aid the administrative teams in actually keeping track of the paperwork that's involved with a single student's PhD throughout a 3-year programme. At the moment, though, we're limited to the TNA, the supervisory meeting reports, and the personal development plans. But we've got big plans going forward. The nice thing about, of course, including all of these in PebblePad is transparency. The student has a record of all the forms that have been submitted. And this is something that a lot of closed or bespoke systems that higher education institutes use don't allow the student to see. So, reception and challenges. And I've put, why are we doing this and how do we do it? These are questions asked by both students and supervisors. Problems we've had. Really, do the students fully appreciate or understand the importance of evidencing skills and training? Do they see employability as a problem going forward in their careers? Maybe not. Maybe not. Maybe they're concentrating on the project or that moment in time. More importantly, do supervisors realise this same importance? Our experience internally in Sheffield is sadly that some supervisors probably don't. They might be in tenured positions for many years, and they don't realise the difficulties that doctoral graduates now have in either achieving an academic career or even moving forward into a career in science in the corporate world. It's not just about the project anymore. The challenges. Well, with anything, I think it's ensuring that we give program-specific PebblePad training to our students, supervisors and administrators. Just a brief introduction to PebblePad is not enough. We need to make it very specific in terms of what we require of the student, the supervisor and the administrators in relation to the specifics of the PhD programme. We hold postgraduate induction courses, PICs. These are cross-sessional, 2 major ones a year, October time and Easter time, where we actually give the specific training to students, to new starters. We back this up with documentation and screencasts. I'm pleased to say that actually we get very few technical inquiries from students or staff on how to actually use PebblePad for our purposes. The inquiries we do get are more program specific, which can be easily answered by either the supervisor or the admin team. We try to aim for self-sufficiency. We try to realise further benefits. When I mean by self-sufficiency, we try to, especially with the admin staff, we try to get them to buy into PebblePad and see how they could develop it themselves to refine the administrative process, use it for other forms, for other means. Hopefully as well, the supervisors will use it for teaching in their undergraduate teaching. And we're seeing some of this now. And so we're realising further benefit across the institution, really just from introducing this initially, I'll say introducing PebblePad into the institution just for the doctoral development programme. So, future developments. At the moment, our TNA that we use is just a very, very simple list of attributes, no more than 20, and these have been devised in-house. What we want to replace them with is really our training needs analysis will be based around the Vitae Research and Development Framework, which is almost becoming a standard. And for those that you don't know, Vitae is been working in the UK since 1968, actually, and it's an international programme that's been led and managed by the Careers Research and Advisory Centre, which is a not-for-profit registered UK charity, which is dedicated to active career learning and development. Much of the work is funded by the UK Research Councils. Vitae offers institutional and personal membership, okay, but we're able to use any of the materials that, in terms of the 64 attributes and their descriptors and their phase designations freely and translate them into Pebble. It's actually free for non-profit and educational use. What Vitae offers are things known as lenses, which are simple filters, if you like, of the 64 attributes. And the ones that we're really interested in employing are the Getting Started in Research lens and the Employability lens for our DDP programme. And again, the VTI RDF attributes, there's more and more interest and expectation of use from corporate employers. And so we feel this is a really good way to go. And the benefit, we actually see that the VTI attributes can be used across both undergraduate, taught postgraduate, PGR, and moving on to early career postdoctoral researchers and even established academics. So this simple TNA, based upon the VTI attributes that we aim to introduce in the new session, will actually be something that the individual can take with them throughout their career. And again, because of its inclusion in PebblePad, it's portable. And again, we think PebblePad allows greater versatility over the VTI online planner in terms of being able to incorporate elements into an e-portfolio to be able to share this with mentors, supervisors. It's a question we've asked ourselves. Is there a case for a postgraduate here? This is the Higher Education Achievement Record. This could be built easily upon a PGRE portfolio, similar to what we're doing here in Sheffield, and it could act as a showcase for employability with that reassurance to employers of an endorsed quality assurance from the awarding institution. And of course, it could include and extracurricular activities. In effect, you could say that the e-portfolio that our students are actually producing PebblePad is fundamentally a postgraduate here. And I'm not sure what others think about that. How can we improve? Well, as you're probably all aware by now, Pebble have been busy developing new toys for us all to play with. Pebble Home, which will be a new home screen summarising all your Pebble activities. And the new Flourish functionality in PebblePad will hopefully make our ability to monitor and to tutor and supervise our students a whole lot easier. We hope that also the new functionality of Flourish will hopefully persuade some of our students who are a bit reticent to engage with PebblePad for other activities to record all their experience and skills. Hopefully they'll actually engage with it a little bit more and realise the wider benefit of using Pebble. And just to illustrate the point, at the moment, this is what our students see when they log into PebblePad. Yeah, a really horrendous picture of Firth Court, which is one of our older buildings here in Sheffield. But they're presented with a blank screen. And really, it's difficult for anybody, new to PebblePad especially. What do I do now? Okay, now what? And this is where we think the Pebble home screen will really come in handy. I don't know if you can see this very clearly, but you're presented when you log in as an individual with, on the left-hand panel, things you need to know, things that you've been engaged with or activities you've been engaged with, things that you might have submitted in Pebble. And on the right-hand side, you're prompted things you need to do. And these might be tasks that have been asked of you, or actually appointments with your, have been arranged with your tutor or supervisor. So we think this is going to be a great benefit overall. But even better, Flourish, the new personal tutoring component of PebblePad, we think is going to allow us to really transpose all of our both tutoring, supervisory and administrative needs for our doctoral programs into Pebble. Flourish, for those of you who don't know, is still under development by Pebble. It allows the creation of discrete pathways, and think of pathways as programs a learner can engage with. And a program or a pathway is composed of milestones, each of which can be composed of tasks. So think of a pathway, a program as a pathway. This might be each year of a PhD program. Milestones might be various revisions of literature reviews that need to be assessed at periodically. And tasks within might be simple forms that need to be filled in by both the supervisor, student, or both. And in theory, across an institution, a supervisor actually might be able to keep track and supervise and keep tabs on both their undergraduate tutorial groups and their postgraduate students. And it allows the administrative and PGR lead teams an oversight of this student-supervisor interaction. Just to give you an idea, this is a really simplified summary of all the processes involved in a PhD in terms of forms that need to be filled in, things that need to be completed. This is not all of it by any means, but you can see it's actually quite a complex administrative process. And we're hoping to actually incorporate a lot of this into Flourish. So going forward, we hope to have a small faculty-based pilot of PhD students and supervisors over the summer using Flourish. And in the new session, we look to roll out into the wider faculty and institution. Will we flourish with Flourish? Who knows? I think it's going to be a lot of hard work in terms of engaging the staff and students. We've been using PebblePad now here in Sheffield for the DDB process for 4 or 5 years to one degree or another. And of course, we have a lot of existing students. We probably won't ask them to start using Flourish or transferring to use Flourish, but we envision sort of our new intakes in the new session to actually be to use Flourish from the outset. It hopefully will give this ability to monitor the student-supervised interaction and ensures an end to this so-called secret garden model of supervision, where the student and supervisor are locked away, working closely, okay, but without external scrutiny or an accountability. And of course, there is much pressure on institutions now to deliver PhDs on time. And of course, most of them succeed very successfully. But every now and again, we do have problems, whether it's student performance or student-supervisor relationship problems. And of course, any delays are wanted to be avoided. So we're hoping that this ability to monitor this student-supervisor relationship, plus keep better track of all the paperwork, is really going to be of benefit to us. So fingers crossed for Flourish. And there's sorry, I think I might have dropped out there briefly. I'm done. Are there any questions?
Okay, thank you, Ian. That was a fantastic presentation. I'm actually going to ask my colleagues in the room here to do a little round of applause. Sounds a little.
Thank you.
Apologise. Okay, so I'm going to open up the discussion screen now, and everyone has the chance to pose some questions to Ian. We've got maybe sort of 10 minutes or so to sort of hopefully sort of pick Ian's brain a little bit more. Whilst you're composing those questions, I'm going to ask a question, Ian, if that's okay. And I'm not going to pick a too hard one because obviously you're my customer, so I want to look after you. But I'm particularly interested in the submission of the portfolio as a requirement for the PhD reward. And what I would like you to do, if possible, is just expand a little bit on that and just sort of explain how the tutor team sort of managed that process. The reason I'm asking that is because I know from the vet school at the University of Nottingham, who did one of the earlier webinar series in our community, mentioned that they use it for their Viva. And so do students utilise this in terms of presentations as part of their PhD is kind of what I'm after.
Okay, yeah. I say it is a requirement of submission for the award of PhD at Sheffield. Every student needs to produce a portfolio. Interestingly, if you read our small print in our terms and conditions, it doesn't actually say it has to be an e-portfolio at the moment. This is something that, of course, Ian Douglas is striding towards. But technically, it doesn't have to be an e-portfolio. The problem is, previously, before DDP, this portfolio really could consist of 2 sides of A4 with a bullet-pointed list of courses or training attended. I don't think that's great. I don't think it's great in terms of evidencing the skills, both personal and development training that the students achieved during their 3 years. And so the move to an e-portfolio and the more closer, shall we say, supervision of this development of this e-portfolio over the 3 years is something that I think is going to be quite beneficial. I should point out, although it's a summative e-portfolio that needs to be submitted, from day one, okay, the student can start their e-portfolio and actually submit it to a workspace. So from day one, even if it's just a record of I attended an induction course today that told me how to use PebblePad, the supervisor is able to view and comment and feedback on that individual student's portfolio. So hopefully it serves a multitude of purposes, but more importantly, it really does give the supervisor an overview of the training and development that the student's undertaking as part of their PhD. And let's remember, a PhD at that particular level, a lot of it is self-directed learning. The onus is a lot on the student to go off and do their own research into training opportunities and bits and bobs.
Thank you. I can see there's a whole bunch of questions coming in. I can answer Paul Chin's question about homepage very briefly whilst you, Ian, take a look at some of the other questions. HomePad, as it's actually known, isn't an integral part of Flourish, but if you are interested in Flourish, then you naturally get that as a default. But Paul, I'm quite happy to talk to colleagues at Hull to sort of explain the process of HomePad and maybe look to see whether that's of use for you. Ian asked a question of Shane about when Flourish is available, and you can see that has been answered. Ian, can I ask you the question from our colleague at the University of West England? Can PhD students who have an existing PebblePad portfolio combine with their PhD folio?
Absolutely. If they've been in Sheffield and have an existing PebblePad account, all the components of that portfolio are assets in their Pebble store. So they can combine or take or select any of those components and add them into a PhD portfolio. Even if they're not from Sheffield, if they've had a previous Pebble account elsewhere, they can either have that ported or actually turn it into they can actually link it to their Sheffield account and then use the existing assets in their previous Pebble account to put bits and pieces into the new portfolio. So it's fantastic from that point of view.
Brilliant. Francis from the Chartered Society of Physiotherapy is asking you, Ian, if you could expand on the user needs training and how you kind of best deliver that.
Yeah, as I mentioned, we feel as though it needs to be very program specific, i.e. why are you using PebblePad for the doctoral development program? So in our postgraduate induction courses and our documentation that we supply with those, we actually work through the students on the basics, obviously, of PebblePad generally, but more importantly, how to obtain the TNA as a resource that's been provided to them, how to submit that, and it's actually set to auto-submit, and we only want them to use it once, of course. We want them to have this training needs analysis develop and be updated throughout their 3 years with us. And again, this is something that's an improvement on the paper system. Previously, the TNA was completed every year on a separate piece of paper. Not very elegant. But the training is program specific. So we talk them through how to obtain and complete the TNA, how to put the basics of a web folio and submit that. And this is all done live in a single session that lasts about an hour and a half. Now, logistically, we wouldn't be able to do this without these faculty-based postgraduate induction courses. So for the first 2 weeks of the new session, where a lot of our intake arrives, then that's really timetabled for the induction courses. PebblePad's a small part of that. We also run a smaller pick in April. And again, the PebblePad components are very specific to the requirements of the doctoral development program. And I think that works really well. I think being presented with that, the existing PebblePad blank screen when you log in is a little bit overwhelming for anybody. So we try and ease some of that pain. Going forward with the Pebble home screen especially, we hope to pre-populate that with lots of tasks that we want them to undertake immediately. So hopefully we can actually simplify the induction courses to really just say, log into PebblePad, look at your home screen, undertake the tasks that are listed on the right-hand side.
Thank you. There's a couple of further questions I'd like to address with you, Ian, and then keep putting them into the chat because we can put those into the community if we run out of time today. But Louisa from the University of Nottingham is asking, do you have a training credit requirement to be attained for some courses? And is this recorded and monitored via PebblePad, or at least could it be?
For our doctoral development program, we don't actually have a credit-bearing requirement now for the modules. We used to work to that model, but that was scrapped some through 2-3 years ago. If we did have a similar system, and some of the modules that our students undertake aren't credit bearing, but they're mandatory, and that of course is easily recorded in PebblePad because we actually ask, say for instance, we run a research ethics module where the assessment, the mandatory assessment, is actually in the form of a reflective piece on each session that the students attend, and so that's monitored by the module leader. But no, we've moved away from a training credit requirement for DDP.
Thank you. There's a question that's coming from Claire from UCLan, which I think I'm going to address, if that's okay, which is about confidentiality and access issues, where both the students are also a member of staff. The great thing with PebblePad, Claire, is that with the sort of permissions that surround accounts, it would be possible for sort of what we would call a whitelisting. So you're only able to see certain things that you're supposed to be able to see. Because at the end of the day, PebblePad is built on this philosophy of a personal learning space. So I think that's something that maybe my colleague John could follow up with you as he kind of looks after UCLan. The last question that I'm going to propose to you, Ian, before we kind of take this offline and follow on in the community at a later date, is from Ellen, who's saying, who's looking at the discrepancies between supervisors and the students' reports, and how would that be addressed? She's saying it seems like that's the kind of situation that could easily end in an unfair or unfortunate power balance.
Hi, Ellen. I probably didn't make very clear in there that the form that the template that both the student and supervisor fill in after a supervisory meeting occurs is actually the same form. At the top of the form, it's the student fields where we ask about their progress, how they feel it's going. At the bottom of the form, there are assessor fields that only the supervisor can actually fill in. Now, when they're submitted on a monthly basis, the administrative team and the PGR lead team actually do run reports that compare the answers both from student and supervisor. And again, those reports go to the PGR leads that are department-based and faculty-based, and they sort of look for, say, continuing discrepancies. For instance, and I said in the presentation, if there's a single blip where 1 month the students rated themselves very highly and think their progress has been amazing, but the supervisor doesn't agree, that could just be that particular month. But if that occurs over 6 months, that's more of a cause for worry. And this is where the monthly reporting by our admin teams, based upon these submitted forms, really comes in handy, because hopefully these problems can be identified, and then it moves to a PGR lead's role to actually mediate and have a word with the supervisor, the student, and actually try to address some of these problems. Okay, fantastic. Okay, so I'm going to call this webinar to a close.
We will be sending out the URL for this recording, and we'll post that onto the community site. And obviously, hopefully, there'll be some further conversations that can take place around there. But on behalf of everyone here at PebblePad, Ian, thank you so much for a fantastic presentation, and look forward to the next one, which you can see is on the 5th of May, which is about understanding student perspectives of using portfolios. And just to also mention the Health Symposium, which is taking place on the 7th of May in Birmingham, and the Mini Bash annual conference on the 16th of June. So it'd be fantastic if some of you could come along to those face-to-face events, and we can get to meet you all in person. But once again, thank you very much, Ian, and I'll speak to you soon.
Yeah, thanks very much for everyone attending. Thanks.